Now let's cast some StarCraft. As we're in game number 1 on Solaris here. This is going to be a banger. One of the all-time favorite Protosses of the entire StarCraft scene. In the lower left-hand corner, it's Stats. He was one of the Protoss hopes through Legacy of the Void. We missed him when he was gone. Happy to have him back. He did just take down Beyond, which is kind of a banger. I didn't see that one. Instead, we were watching this man up here ruin our hopes and dreams of seeing Stats versus Sue in 2024 by taking down Sue. It is Vitality's Solar. It's a little too good at that ZVZ. Let's see how he does against the Protoss. I'm going to guess pretty good. Solar, I mean, he's just looked so good this past year. Winning in GSL, second in DreamHack in Atlanta. I'll be honest, I don't remember how he did at Katowice because I have a bad memory. But I'm sure he did very well. Dave. Oh, man.
Who let the cogs out? Who let the cogs
Thank you so much for the 1,000 bits. He didn't even post anything with it. How are we going to hear the TTS? How are we going to hear the TTS if you don't post anything with it? Oh, no, dude. L underscore, L underscore, L underscore, L underscore. 777 septillion, 777 sextillion, 777 quintillion. GG, bud. Thank you for the 1,000 bits and the 300 bits moments before that. Did you hear the, I don't know if he's still doing it. He probably is. I don't go on Artosis' stream very often, but of course, he sets the TTS meta, right? And now he has a TTS, assuming he still does it, that is an AI of his own voice that does the TTS. So he has that, but he also has a Brian one. Actually insane. That's going to try to sneak a couple of Adepts in here, but the Lings and Queens are ready to go. 2 drones will fall. However, both of those Adepts will fall as well. The Oracle comes in. Oh my god, he gets absolutely blasted by the Queens. It's going to try to get 1 drone. Nearly dies. Gets the drone, stays alive, so he'll be around for another day. The stats opening very, very standard here. With the Adepts harassing, the Oracles coming out. I kind of love this. I mean, this is what I expect from Stats. Honestly, I feel like the player that has most embodied Stats in a way is actually MaxPax. MaxPax tends to play just like solid macro, tries to get a tempo advantage, and then, I mean, nobody, I think, in this day and age is better at defending stuff than MaxPax. His defense is constantly just insane. And people will throw all sorts of stuff at him, and he will just deflect it. Like Mr. Miyagi, wax on and wax offing. So I feel like, in a big way, MaxPax has taken that stats portion of the Protoss gameplay. So it's cool to see Stats playing in that same way that MaxPax often does. Then we have the follow-up with the Twilight Council and a bunch of gates going down here. Makes me think Stats is not going Blink Stalkers. But as I say that, I see 4 Stalkers already out on the map. So maybe it is Blink Stalkers. I'm just not seeing the Forge. And usually for Blink, you'll get the +1 at the same time. But we shall see what Stats likes to do. 4 gates is a lot. I mean, this is... a lot of stuff here for Stats. He can have a lot of Blink Stalkers coming out. Ooh, Stalker's trying to stay safe from the Zerglings here. I like the use of the speed zones, as well as the Oracles just sitting back away from the Queens a little bit. Ooh, those Stats sending a couple of Stalkers the wrong direction, and one of them will get taken out. Solar, in the meantime, has 4 bases, or I guess nearly 4 bases up. Stats is ahead in workers, though. Zerglings are going to come over here and try to get in. There's no shield battery at this base. There is a shield battery at this base and 1 stalker to try to hold on. Well, the shield battery is going to get hit. The probes will pull to fight at the same time. Stalkers, oh, kind of on their own here. The oracles ran away to go help that third base, and that means these stalkers at this proxy pylon are actually getting chewed apart here before the oracles can get back to help. Proxy pylon will go down. Blink not quite done yet. Oh, stats! The oracles are out of energy. Stats. These stalkers. Oh, man, and Solar. I mean, this is beautiful play by Solar. Taking advantage of stats being a little bit too overzealous out on the map with these stalkers and kills every single one. The oracles out of energy because they were trying to help with the third base and then had to come all the way back. And now Blink is done. But there's only 7 stalkers out, and stalkers, they do not do well in low numbers. And Stats' whole game plan involved going on into big numbers of Blink stalkers. And it's just going to be that much harder now. We do see the Forge coming down from Stats, so it feels like he is going to move on out of just pure Blink Stalker. Positioning like he's going to take a 4th base. I love the gateway wall here. He's seen a lot of Lings running around, and backstabs are a big part of, I mean, Zerg play in general these days. Backstabs with Ling run-bys and things like that have been huge. So I love that Stats is respecting that and just putting down the wall. This is a very Stats thing to do. Funnily enough, that is something we don't see a player like MaxPax do very often. MaxPax will count on his ability to have units warped in, maybe just a cannon with some shield batteries nearby. But, yeah, Stats wants to go for the full wall. Although, as we see, he missing. Look at that. He's like, oh, oops. That's not a wall. Puts down a 5th gateway there. However, there are 15 Mutalisks on the way. Roach speed was done, I saw. But we're not seeing any roaches coming out. Solar's just going pure Ling Muta. However, I don't know. I feel like Stats is actually going to be, potentially could be okay against this. 15 Mutas is a lot. But he hasn't gone for the 4th base just yet. I guess that's the only concern. I saw that probe go down there way earlier and thought for sure he was just going to put the base down. But he has not yet. Now these Mutas are coming in right as the Stalkers are leaving. Ooh, did he see that with something? Oracles are heading across the map. They're going to gun down this queen. The Mutas actually find the Stalkers, but now the Stalkers need to get their way up into the main base. He's going to go for the recall. Solar, I think, just needs to get out of there with these Stalkers. There are a few in the natural. Looks like the Oracles killed a few drones, now are coming back. The Stalkers actually seem to be in a very good position here. I was a little bit worried about these Mutas coming in. More Mutas are on the way. However, now the Lings are hitting this base, and there's nothing to stop them. The Mutas are keeping all those Stalkers busy. And that's going to be a cancel on that 4th base. Stats stuck on 3. Solar, though, up to 5. He's on 82 drones. And he's just continuing to produce Lings and Mutas. That Muta count still up at 20. And the Stalkers can't hold on forever. Now, that being said, Storm is available, but the High Templar get jumped on, and now the Stalkers are getting absolutely shredded by the Lings again, and that is just GG. Stats forced to tap out as Solar overwhelms them with the Lings and the Mutas. And I think a huge part of that just comes down to the those first few Stalkers getting jumped on by the Lings. Stats was maybe a little bit later on the Blink than he was expecting to be. He was trying to have presence out on the map well before Blink was done, and it started out okay, but the moment those Oracles left, those Stalkers were so vulnerable. And Stats' play was very clearly to try to snowball with Blink Stalkers and just have a huge group of Blink Stalkers, which is very, very powerful against Zerg. It's a tough thing to deal with. It was tough for a long time, but then the Baneling got nerfed against armored units like years ago. And it was even more difficult. It's not something we see super often because there are ways to take advantage of it, but I think that could have worked really well there for stats because it was just Ling Queen for Solar for so long. However, obviously, Stalkers died. We didn't get to see that big snowball of Blink Stalkers, and then the Mutas were coming in. Stats. The big problem with Mutas for the Protoss to deal with is that while you're busy dealing with them, the Zerg is just expanding and droning up and putting himself in a better and better position. Yeah, it's not good. Not good for the Protoss. I thought Storm would have helped a lot more there, but a little banter going on between them in the lobby. I think it was all just like a little bit too late for stats by the time that happened. And so we'll go to hard lead for game number 2. Oh, and in the meantime, somebody asked for one of these. See, I don't have a command just to hear this, because we don't have a recording. This is fresh every time. And as we get into game 2, we'll give them a big ol' yeehaw! Let's hop in here and join our players on hard lead. Spawning in the lower right-hand corner, we have none other than the stats man himself. And of course, in the upper left-hand corner, the blue Zerg for Vitality, it is Solar. Up 1-0 in this match. Checking to see if there's any probe out here. But Stats is an honorable Protoss, and he is not going to block that hatchery. He says, listen, you can go ahead and take that hatch. You go ahead and do that. I don't need to block your hatchery to play in this game. It is kind of funny how the meta of blocking the hatchery has changed. We started seeing Protoss do that, and I think a big part of why we saw Protoss consistently blocking the natural hatchery was because of Glaive Adept builds. When those really came into power with Zest, Zest would like always block the hatch. In fact, he did for years and years, and probably still does, you know, who knows. But it was a big part of like, so the creep couldn't be connected, so the queens would have a tough time getting back and forth and dealing with Glaive Adept, same with like roaches and stuff, anything that's, you know, slow off creep. But especially the queens. But then we just saw Protoss continue to do it. Even when Glaive Adept builds, you know, they're not quite as popular anymore. But it's an annoying thing to do to the Zerg, to the point where Zergs are just so used to it now that you kind of just expect it every single game. Another Stargate opener from Stats. So, if you guys are, you know, weren't watching as much StarCraft maybe in 2018, 2019, even before then, Stats was always the most defensive of the Korean Protoss. There's that, like, spectrum of Korean Protoss play, and Stats was always, I mean, he was the far left, right? I don't know where the spectrum goes. Whichever side's more defensive. Stats was always he was hard on that side of it. Not to say he doesn't have aggressive builds he can do, but you just don't really expect to see that from him, right? In the same way that, like, I don't expect SOS to play solid standard defensive play. I don't expect Stats to do anything but that. He was always the defensive kind of player. So I expect to just see solid macro play out of Stats. Like what we saw in the opening of last game. Same kind of thing that we often see from Max Packs. I think, you know, Showtime often has a penchant for being solid macro defensive Protoss. Max Packs will mix it up more often, for sure. But I feel like he was also kind of a pioneer of the Protoss, like, I'm going to be annoying and like weirdly aggressive while also just defending and expanding, which feels like it should be impossible, but Max Packs showed us how good that could be in multiple matchups. I mean, the original Max Packs build is exactly that, and I feel like that vibe has been consistent with Max Packs over the years. Just kind of, I don't know, proving to us all that you can do a lot with very few units. That's kind of like the way the Protoss is supposed to be against the Zerg, right? It's like, well, I have, 6 units and you've got 18, but like those queens aren't going to attack. So you can get some poking and prodding done, kill a couple of drones and a larva. And just defend with a couple of adepts well positioned. It's cool stuff. Zest also very good at that. And I feel like that just speaks to the kind of player stats is. So exactly what I expect to see from him. The follow-up is going to be Blink again. A bunch of gateways coming up. It looks like that is Stats' game plan for this matchup. So hopefully this time we get to see it work out a little bit better. There are adepts moving with these stalkers this time. That should help them out against some lings. But there's just more lings on the way for Solar. He's got the Roach Warden in the Evo Chamber coming up again, but we saw that last game and we didn't see any roaches get made as he decided the lings were enough and he would just go straight into mutas. But I think, again, last game was a bit non-standard there as he was able to get a jump on all of the stalkers, and that's a big deal that I don't think Stats is going to let happen again. Ooh, Stats is coming out with the probe as well. He's going to clear some of this creep. Push forward. Lings are going for a counterattack. Stalkers are going to be forced to warp him back at home. The shield battery finishing just in time. Ends up being a good defense for Stats. Doesn't even have to fight with those units. Just warps them in. The Lings run away. However, they're trying to move out now, and they are going to get caught. No, they find a nice little position here. Blink is nearly done. One Stalker will get caught in the meantime. The other ones will stay safe. Back by the shield battery. That was dangerously close to being the exact same position as what happened last game, but it feels like Blink was maybe a little bit quicker this time, and now Stats is going to be able to start his push as it was meant to be. Some of these Stalkers getting caught, but Blink being done, and these stasis traps existing, making it a little bit easier for Stats to push, and he's forcing these roaches out. Solar, now he has to play Stats' game. And Stats is just going to keep on pushing, more stasis traps being put down. Ling's going for a counterattack, but not really diving in just yet. There's a few adepts back at home to defend them. And the Stalker's just trading with the roaches a little bit here. I don't think any roaches have died just yet. It's just the Lings out front. Queens transfusing each other to stay alive. They got to be a little bit careful, though. They could get targeted down here by the Stalkers. Nice transfuses so far, but good blinking from Stats as well. Only the one Stalker that died earlier to those Lings has gone down. None of these Stalkers have died just yet. As I say it, though, the roaches are getting high enough in number to start pushing these back. Solar does have a 4th base. If he can squeeze out a few drones, he can put himself in a good position economically. He is getting into an infestation pit as well. So for those Stalkers doing a great job poking and prodding. Lings are still alive on the other side of the map, though, so keep tabs on things. Oh, they're going to dive in. A couple of them going to go down. There's 3 stasis traps here, actually 4. Solar doing a great job not diving into those, actually. Triggers one of them with a Zergling. Hasn't gotten any roaches trapped in them just yet. It does make it a little bit harder as he pushes this back, though. Got to be careful and diligent about these stasis traps. Still no 4th base for Stats. He is just keeping on this pressure, and he's going into a Robo-Bay this game. Not going into Storm like we saw last game. I guess that makes more sense against the Roaches and Ravagers that are coming out here. In the meantime, Solar's Hive is nearly done. His Lurker Den is on the way. He still does not have a 4th base. Although it looks like he might be heading that way now. Double Colossus production. I'll be honest, I fully expected Disruptors. Colossi is so interesting. Oh, the probe gets killed. The Lings will sacrifice himself for it, but it does delay that fourth by quite a bit. These Stalkers out here are starting to get real outnumbered by the Roaches. But double Colossi, I mean, I'll be honest, Colossi against Roaches, not great. But if you get 4 out, they do decent against Roaches. They like really are not bad against the Roaches. My biggest concern here for stats is that if you have 4 Colossi out and Solar makes 2 Vipers, those Colossi just die. That's it. There's just basically no counterplay. 2 full energy Vipers, they'll just yoink both the Colossi, and all of a sudden your splash damage is gone. So there's a very short window. Solar does not have any Vipers out just yet. And because he's not making them right now, there will be a short window where those 4 Colossi will be very powerful. But even they have a tough time pushing into Lurkers. Lurkers actually outrange Colossi by 1. So they can really help out against those guys. Also, because the Colossi have unit walking, they can just stand over other units. I think they're unique in that sense, right? They're the only unit that does that. Lurkers they get so much more splash damage value. However, Stats is trying to push in on the left and on the right, just kind of microing 2 armies at once. These 3 Lurkers, though, trying to defend. Oh my god, a big blink forward. There's no way to stop this Observer as the Spore Crawler was unburrowed, and Stats is pushing in over here. The Roaches have won this fight, though. So Solar's going to push in over here, but with some static defense here and a warp in his Stalkers, Stats is going to hold back at home. He's still trying to push on this side, but it looks like most of the Stalkers have died. Now it's just 4 Colossi. We do see 3 Vipers start up pretty much immediately as he sees those Colossi, though, for Solar. Oh, they've gotten such good value so far, though. Like, already they're doing so good. A couple of drones do go down. Oh, this one Colossus is so low, but still alive. The Stalkers show up to help as more Stalkers hit over here. They're trying to take the base down, but the Lings are getting on top of them. Stats needs to stop focusing on the base. I don't think those Stalkers win through that fight. This Colossus on 3 hit points is going to keep pushing forward. But there's the Vipers. There's a yoink on 1. 2 Colossi. They will both fall, and Roaches on the backside. Gonna kill the other 2. You don't even need the Abduct. And in the meantime, these Stalkers... actually, these Stalkers dive in. I thought they were going to get cleaned up, but they will kill the base. I don't think they're going to get too much more done than that. But there's more Stalkers hitting on the left. Stats, man, he is not chilling at all. Trying to pick off some units here. He does pick off another Lurker. Splits against the one that burrows, and then just blinks backwards. This is actually crazy, man. Stats is getting so much value on both sides here. He's traded better in general this game, and during all this, he's put down a second Stargate and a Fleet Beacon, so he is getting carriers out. These Stalkers still are going to be trimming off some drones here that are long-distance mining, and just trading with a few of these Lings that go in at a time is actually really nice for them. Stats is trying to make this so difficult for Solar, and he's doing a fantastic job. Solar is struggling to take fights on both sides here. Even though he's killed the Colossi, it does look like he's pretty well set up on this side. The one Lurker dives in, but there's detection. There's an Observer here. So the Lurker dies, and suddenly that's a really big loss for Solar. The Observer will go down, so another Lurker could help out on this side. But Stats, he's still trading really nicely here. He's killed this base as well. The Stalker's getting big value. And now Solar's on 3 bases right now. He's on 3 hatcheries. The main is getting very close to mined out. The natural is getting close to mined out. In the meantime, Stats is chilling back at home, man. He has 4 bases. And I mean, he's getting into carriers, which I do not think Solar is thinking about right now. I do not think he's expecting carriers. I love the Blinding Cloud here. A great way to just stop these Stalkers from doing damage for long enough for the army to get there. A few more Stalkers go down. Some Zealots looking like they want to hit on this side. I just don't think Solar is going to be expecting there to be 5 carriers on the other side of the map soon. +1 is on the way for them as well. The Stalker unit groups they're not doing so hot anymore. Oh, and charge is not done yet. So a bunch of Zealots just warped in and there's no charge. But I feel like if Stats goes home, the one concern here are these Vipers. I do not think there's any High Templar. I don't even know if there's a Templar Archives. There's not. So there's no feedback for these Vipers. So it would just be on the Stalkers to kill those. But like 10 Hydras, I don't know, man, there are 5 carriers right now. I don't think 10 Hydras cuts it. I don't think that cuts the mustard. You can yoink those carriers all day. That does not do damage to them. Those Hydras actually have to do something. There are so many lurkers, though, that the ground army of stats is in a lot of trouble. Ah, there's the Templar Archive. Storm starts up. He's going to warp in some High Templar. He's going to tag these Hydras. The Hydras, though, I don't think they realize that there's 5 carriers. Yeah, look at Solar ready to go forward. There's 13 Hydras out. He yoinks the mothership, but the time warp does go down, which means these carriers are going to get so much damage on as the Hydras try to retreat. Stats realizes the carriers will win the fight against the Hydras. He's going to turn the Oracles on too just to make sure, and that's GG! As Solar cannot fight those boys. Stats, let's go. Gets a game, ties up the series 1-1. Oh my god, dude, that gameplay from Stats was insane. Hitting with both armies, just like constantly back and forth, blink microing on both fronts. That was so sick. Killing hatcheries, trading well with Zerglings, killing lurkers. It was super funny. Those Colossi came out and it was like exactly what I said. They're going to be great right until the Vipers get made. And then immediately they died. But just so much. So much damage and value getting done by those Stalkers. And then the carrier follow-up. Like, the fact that Stats started that so early. The Fleet Beacon, the second Stargate, he started that way. I didn't even notice him getting put down. And then he's just like microing on 2 fronts and he just starts up the carriers. Just gets those carriers going, because there's a really dangerous position where you're trying to get those carriers out and you only have like 2. If Solar had been able to push back on those Stalkers and counter when there's like 2 carriers, I think Solar just wins there. But the Stalkers bought so much time. Solar was just desperately trying to defend that by the time he got out there, it was 5 carriers. And that is that's a different story, man. 5 carriers is terrifying. As we see, it can just win games. And here we go. We are getting into game number 3 on Alcyone. And in the upper right-hand corner, we have Stats. I miss those Stats emotes. Those were just the best emotes. The Stats lull, absolute banger. And his opponent in the lower left-hand corner is Vitality's Solar. Now, Solar's going to start us off nice and cool, easy breezy, with a gold base. And we love to see that. We love to see that. Stats is going to scout. Doesn't see this just yet, but I'm sure he'll be looking for it after not seeing a hatchery here. So what is Solar going to give us? What is he going to do for us? There's a lot of possibilities. Funnily enough, earlier on this map, we did see a ZVP with a similar opening from Euthermal. That one, though, I do think he had the early gas in the early pool back at home. I just want you guys to know, when that last game ended, I did a full fist pump. A full, like, GG Stats 1 fist pump. Because that game was so sick. That wasn't just like a... Like, I don't know, man. You can beat a player like Solar sometimes with a cheeky build, or like something just doesn't mesh up, or he doesn't scout something and it just doesn't, just doesn't work out. That was not what happened that game, man. Stats put on a great show. And now he's opening up. I have not seen this in forever. This is a 2-gate opening. So it's going to be a delayed Nexus, but he's going to be chrono boosting out these Adepts and getting them across the map. This is actually when I first was learning Protoss builds against Zerg. This is what I learned. This is a long time ago, dude. I've been playing Protoss a long time. But he's going to try to do this to take advantage of the gold base. However, Solar has taken down the rocks, and he knows this is coming. Scouted it with the Overlord. Lings and Queen doing a great job defending so far, but he's out of Lings. So the drones are trying to mine here. Solar on a low drone count. He was trying to be cheeky with his gold base, but look, he's just not mining at it. This is so much lost mining time, even though only 3 drones died. First of all, that's huge on the worker count, as we see. But that's even bigger because of the lost mining time. Stats taking a massive lead economically during that. And now 2 more Adepts, 3 more Adepts come across. And these Lings still have to be careful, even with Ling speed. 9 Lings does not beat 3 Adepts. So these Adepts are king of the castle right now, keeping Solar playing super defensively. And these drones they got to be ready to get pulled at a moment's notice. There they go again. So even though Solar's keeping them alive, this is still huge, huge amounts of lost mining time, considering how little mining he actually has. The Adepts are going to finish this shade. They will not last very long after that. I don't know. They find this good position, though. These Lings are going to trade so inefficiently. Even the weak one with 1 hit point in between the other 2. They're keeping her safe. Finally, the Adepts will fall. But in the meantime, Stats has gotten his own base up. He's got a Robo coming up. Glaives is on the way. I don't know if this Overlord's going to spot Glaives. He's going to see 2 more gates, and I think he saw the Robo. Even without the Twilight Council, I feel like Solar probably knows what it is. But, I mean, this is 4-gate Glaives is still a powerful build. And so far, those Adepts have done, like, crazy amounts of damage. 18 Lings and 3 drones for 3 Adepts, not to mention, again, all that lost mining time. These big bumps in Stats' favor, this is lost mining time. When we talk about that, this is a huge amount of damage to Solar's economy that is only going to compound when these Adepts come across. Now, Solar is getting some roaches out. Those help quite a bit. But the thing about Glaives Adepts is they can just tank that damage and focus down drones, and that is still, it could still be massive, massive amounts of damage. The Adepts are going to start shading around. These Queens even have to be a little bit careful here as the Adepts start fighting against them. But it's a lot of Lings, a good amount of roaches as well. Stats is going to have to keep threatening to shade around. He's going to warp in more Adepts just right on top of this. Threatens the shade, but cancels it, forces all those Lings away, and then just wins the fight against the roaches. This is a dicey position for Solar, man. He was trying to go for an attack, and Stats is going to hit him with an attack after doing economic damage. I do not like that shade, but he's going to go for it anyway. Some of these Adepts getting into the drone line a little bit, but they're just fighting straight up against the army. That's not usually what Adepts are good at. So none of the drones have gone down yet. Solar is just fighting this off army to army. In the meantime, somehow probes went down. I do not know what happened over there. Maybe some Lings snuck through. Off creep Queen. Gonna get taken down even through a transfuse. Stats will get out of there with a few Adepts. So the Adepts just straight up traded with Lings and Roaches. Now, normally, this is not good. But because Stats is ahead in workers, it's actually okay. It's not great, and I think they could have gotten a lot of worker damage. But it's not the worst thing in the world here for Stats. I think the reason Stats was doing that, he's trying to keep this army count low because he knows the economy is in pretty bad shape for Solar. So the more of these units he can kill, the harder it is for Solar to counterattack, which is exactly what we see Solar doing. Now, Stats, he's going to be very good at defending, but he does not have any shield battery here, and I'm a little worried about that. He's also only got the 1 pylon, and this pylon is, I mean, that is in a dangerous position if Roaches and Ravagers are hitting. I would not hate to see a shield battery and a backup pylon like here. Like, yeah, maybe even back here, backup pylon. In the meantime, Stats is trying to buy time with this Prism and some Adepts. Solar has started droning up, and it looks like he's going to push over 40 workers. he's going to start droning up this third base and getting his mining really going while Stats is being super defensive. That means Stats needs to take a third base or Stats needs to attack. Those are kind of his two options right now. Solar is still ahead in army supply, though. So I feel like harassing while taking a third is probably the better answer here for Stats. As I think it's going to be really tough for him to get too much damage done. His army does very well against this unit set. The Immortal's obviously very good against the Roaches. The Glaive Adept's very good against the Zerglings. But it can be a weird and awkward engagement. He's warping in a bunch of Blink Stalkers now, though. Stats is not taking a third, at least just yet. Oh, and it looks like he's not going to be taking it too soon here as the Lings get in there. Some Adepts are going to sneak into the third base, or the natural base, I guess, of Solar, and start getting some drone kills. 4 drones going down at the same time. The army is hitting at the front. But the Roaches, Ravagers, Queens, and Spine Crawlers here are going to help push those back. The Adepts will get cleaned up. Only 4 drones falling. But again, in these low eco situations, that can be a big deal. Stats has not sent another probe out to take a third. Oh, and there's the Lynx round, and the Adepts are gone, and this is the real danger. Blink is not quite done yet. The Immortal's trying to dive out of the way. These 3 Immortals, though, looking so strong. One of them does fall. The Stalker's blinking. I think Solar might just have too much here, guys. Stats, his army is getting cleaned up, and with no third to fall back to, that just feels like it. He's going to warp in some more Stalkers, but only 1 Immortal left. And the Prism's getting hit here. And that looks like it's going to be GG. As despite taking the 1 map, looking so sick in game 2, Solar is going to take the 2-1 victory over Stats. Solar taking down 2 players in this bracket that we love but haven't quite had those results in the last few years. Both Sue and Stats falling to Solar, who's reigning supreme right now. GG.